Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are previewing the main card of UFC 185. Right now, we're going to take a look at the interesting fight, Overeem and Roy Nelson. We are talking right now with Nick Kalikas from MMAOddsBreaker.com, professional MMA odds maker and a MMA consultant for numerous high-profile sports books. And joining us over the phone, always giving a unique and interesting perspective on these fights and matchups and odds, former MMA title contender Frank Trigg. All right, Overeem and Nelson. It seems like this fight has two possibilities: a boring decision win for Overeem, or one-punch knockout from Nelson. What's more likely? I don't really know. On paper, Overeem should get an easy win here, right? He has so many skills. He has a 7-inch reach advantage. He's 4 years younger. Question is that chin, a glass chin. His fight IQ is so questionable. Roy Nelson, the question is just, he's always dangerous with the one punch. How exactly slow will he be? Is he slowing down? He wasn't that fast to begin with, and now is he slower? I don't know. Frank Trigg, what do you think is the most likely outcome for this fight, Overeem versus Nelson?
It's unfortunate for Joe Silva, but it's one of those matchups where, because the heavyweight division is so weak right now in the UFC, that it's one of those I really don't care fights. There's no appealing value to either one of these guys. Overeem, since he's came up from Pride, has not been the same guy that we saw battle and beat up everybody, won the Strikeforce tournament, won the K1 Grand Prix. He's not that guy anymore. Nelson has always been a shaky heavyweight to me. He can take a lot of damage, can get beat up quite a bit, and sometimes he'll find a way to win, sometimes he'll find a way to lose. He's just one of those mid-level of the pack heavyweights. But now, like you said, he's older. He's slowed down a little bit. He wasn't that fast to begin with. Let's not forget that this is the matchup where everybody knows that Overeem did steroids before. It's not a big secret. It's like I'm saying anything that you can't look up on your own. With the UFC in the state of California, the last time, I think it was 184, they tested everybody on the card, top to bottom, blood and urine. This fight now is going to be one of those fights you're like, okay, well, if a positive result comes from the fight card, anyone is fight card, guys, we all know it's fight card top to bottom. If somebody goes, hey, look, there's a positive test in the fight card, who's the one guy you're going to think tested positive? It's not going to surprise you. And I can guarantee you, 100%, I am telling you, I said this when the news broke, that everyone's saying July when all this testing is going to happen. It's going to happen right now. They're going to test everyone, top to bottom, blood and urine for this entire fight card. So now Overeem has got to change his diet, if he hasn't already. If he's not completely clean out, he has to come in there now because he knows for sure he's going to get tested. It changes the dynamic of this fight. It changes the speed level. It changes the hitting power. It changes the aggressiveness that Overeem has. So now this fight is a lot closer. Originally, when I first saw this fight, I was picking Overeem all day long. I didn't care what anybody was telling me. Overeem's going to crack him and put him, and sting him and hurt him. Won't be able to put him away. Won't put Roy Nelson away, but he's going to be able to chase him down and hold him down and beat him up and lean on him and win a boring decision. Then all of a sudden, now this fight gets a little bit closer because of the drug testing. I can honestly say that Roy Nelson has just increased his chances of winning 20%.
Wow.
Now it's an even matchup because Roy will not use anything illegal. He's completely against it and always has been. He's just one of those, he's a favorite type heavyweight. Dumpy, frumpy, doesn't look like he should be doing anything, hits hard as hell, and superior technically sound. He will probably crack Overeem and put him down. Because of the testing a couple weeks ago, it completely made me flip-flop on this fight. 100% made me flip-flop. And it's one of those fights where you go, if Overeem wins somehow, whether it's decision or knockout or submission, you still have to wait for the results to come back because the fight can get overturned. It's one of those crazy fights for me. So my pick right now, and I'm leaning all over Nelson because now it's an equal, even playing field fight.
Classic analysis from a former MMA fighter who sees those kinds of things clear as day. Yeah, I mean, you call this a fight where it's, I don't care. We like to look at this from a betting perspective, and from what you just said, Roy Nelson plus 175. And that's a pretty healthy underdog, odd offering right there. Might be a great bet. What do you think? Maybe the best bet on the main card?
I think so. I think it's the best bet for me, at least, from what I'm looking at so far. The other fights, the main event is tough to pick. The co-main event's tough to pick. The Hendricks round fight is tough to pick. Also, you come to Nelson Overeem. To me, it just seems so clear that now that the way the UFC is stepping up their game, enforcing a level playing field with drugs, and the way that Nelson wants to prove he still has something to hold into the game, and the way that Overeem has changed in camps and moving himself around, a lot of his we saw the Overeem John Jones debacle where Overeem hurt John Jones in practice. Why are they working out together? That kind of thing. You see all these negative repercussions that Overeem's starting to get from his training camps and from his training partners. That all of a sudden now you're like, Nelson, this is Nelson's time to prove he still has a little bit left in a very, very sparse heavyweight division. We can make him so of a contender with a good, significant, strong knockout finisher of Overeem, and he can do it. So I'm leaning all over Nelson, especially as the underdog.
Nick Kalikas, Overeem, even notwithstanding any of that commentary, has, just from a fan's perspective, some obvious weaknesses, right? His chin is a glass chin. Any casual fan can see that. He has issues with his defense and his ring IQ, yet he's at minus 210 here. Roy Nelson tends to be a fan favorite, right, and might take betting action when he's going up against someone with obvious weaknesses that Overeem has. The 7-inch reach advantage might sway some people, but I'm guessing that maybe the public's been betting Nelson here.
No, actually, it got bet up at one point.
Really?
I think early on, it was close to 4-1. I mean, it was 3.5. It was up over 3-1. So,
wow.
Yeah, they were betting like crazy on the Reem to come through here against Nelson. I guess Nelson coming off that knockout loss to Hunt. I think people are thinking that he's on a bigger decline.
Right.
He's the older fighter as well. And you know what? From the beginning, people were expecting so much from Overeem, and he's been a disappointment. Let's face it. Since he came to the UFC, like Frank said, his strike force and pride days are behind him. He's a different fighter in the UFC. So the more talented fighter, there's no doubt about it. It's Overeem. He's got the size advantage. He's got the technical skill set, I think, overall. The clinch is going to be really a tough spot, I think, for Nelson up against the cage even because Reem throws those knees really good.
Right.
So I do see ways of Overeem winning this fight. And I think actually the wrestling aspect of it too leans a little bit more towards Overeem. He's got a little bit underrated wrestling. And Nelson doesn't really use his ground game. Nelson has ground. He's got jiu-jitsu. He's got wrestling. He just doesn't use it as often as he should. So this fight's probably going to play on the feet, but it only takes that one punch from Nelson and, to end things. And Overeem's chin is so bad that there's no possible way you can lay Overeem in this fight. There's no way you can do it. People are doing it, obviously. I think they're crazy because Nelson has that kind of power that he could put him out. But Nelson probably has to get it done early on, like normal. If this fight does go out of round one, then it should be Overeem's to win or lose, honestly. But it is going to be a tough round one. So I'm leaning, as far as pure pick goes, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Overeem because he is more technical. There's a lot of question marks surrounding Nelson. But what Frank said about the steroids and everything else with the UFC being that was impressive, and I agree with a lot of that too. So I do think there's probably more value on the dog. Just because Nelson, anybody you put in front of Nelson, throughout his career that had a suspect chin, he's pretty much got him out of there.
Right.
And this is just another guy that's coming in with a suspect chin again. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, and I would definitely say it's a dog or pass situation. There could be some value on Roy Nelson in this spot.
Frank Trigg, you more than anyone would be able to comment well on how much that 7-inch reach advantage is going to be a factor in a matchup like this. A lot of people will be seeing that on paper and wondering how much they should put into that. In a matchup like this, with these two fighters being who they are, how much does that 7-inch reach advantage for Overeem matter?
If this fight was Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather, and it was a 7-inch reach advantage for Manny Pacquiao, it'd be a concern.
Right.
Because he fights strong and straight. Overeem is so bulky and so big, his jab isn't even a straight jab. Everything is not at the end of his punches because he can't straighten his elbows out anymore. His biggest, strongest punches are his hooks from both sides. Not his straight right, not his straight left, not his uppercuts, it's his hooks. So 7-inch reach advantage doesn't really count because Overeem even fights inside. We saw him in his prime, in his K1 days, he was fighting on the inside, knocking out these guys in kickboxing. He doesn't have a real good kickboxing base where he can kick as well, that Dutch style of kicking where he can kick as well. It's all about being inside and hitting guys heavy and hard with his big shoulders, his big chest, and his big biceps. So it's a curled-in game. So 7-inch reach advantage, ultimately at the end of the day, for the untrained or for the super trained understanding, fight better, they understand that 7-inch reach advantage is nullified because it's all the way down on the inside. Nothing's going to happen anyway. For the untrained person, someone who's new or someone who's crossing over from boxing, jumping into MMA, trying to make a decision like, 7 inches, that's a huge difference. It'll be nullified the moment they walk into the ring.
There it is. Frank Trigg liking Roy Nelson with value at plus 175. Have to say, that's what I was thinking, and now I'm thinking it even stronger. Thanks so much, guys.